Welcome back. My name is Candice Sanderson. I'm author of The Reluctant Messenger and The Reluctant Messenger Returns. Aspects of our past can weave their way into the future before circling back to create the present time. Confusing? It can be, this mystical dance of creation. But I want you to stay tuned as I unwrap a recent event, and it demonstrates how clever our angels and guides can be. In the past week, I attended two events. Last Monday, an in-person meditation, and on Saturday, a luncheon for spiritually minded people. After a 16-month pandemic break, I finally was able to return to Church of Spiritual Light in nearby Fort Myers for their crystal bowls and energy healing ceremony. Lots of things happened during that meditation, but my biggest takeaway was how I felt. It's as if I shook off the dust that I didn't even know was there, and I reawakened. I felt like a butterfly breaking away from her chrysalis to fly for the very first time. But now it was time to put these newly awakened skills to good use. 5 days later, on Saturday, I attended a luncheon. First of all, I am very shy, so I rarely go to any events by myself. I mean, especially a luncheon, which means I would have to sit down for a couple of hours next to people I didn't know. I did know who the guest speaker was, and I really wanted to support her, so I pushed through my discomfort and I drove by myself to attend. Several things occurred during the luncheon that were coincidental, meaning they happened for a reason. These events coincided with the universe's design to put specific people in touch with each other for a reason. The room was packed as the waitstaff efficiently placed meals in front of each person, making sure not to interrupt the speaker. They were so thoughtful. And a woman from the group asked the speaker a question. She said she's always speaking from her heart, and she asked if there was a way to change that. The speaker then turned to the audience and asked if anyone else wanted to address that question. Well, imagine my surprise when my hand shot up and I started talking. I don't volunteer for things like this. That is not typical behavior. And I started answering and just blabbing on and asking, like, why would you want to change that? Other than you'll need a lot of tissues, which is something I have to keep with me all the time because I too speak from my heart. I then shared some of the things the messengers have told me about the heart and how the heart is a portal. It's the way to find truth and wisdom. So I told her she should be happy that she speaks from her heart. And after the meeting, she came up to me and thanked me for my words. So that was very kind of her. The speaker continued with her presentation, and then the wait staff continued to serve until everyone was served, except two people, me and the woman to my right. When there was a break from the talk, this actually gave me an opportunity to laugh about our luck of not being served. This lovely woman's name is Connie, and we had some very interesting and fascinating conversations which we would not have had if we had been eating. But the next thing I knew, Connie's friend on her right, Lisa, joined in. And as the program finally ended, the woman to Lisa's right told the group a story about her finding this hand-painted tile of the swan boats that she later learned were in Boston. And that's important for a couple of reasons. I won't go into the detail, but this was all connected to her mother, whom I guess by the conversation had passed away. Well, when this woman started talking about the swan boats in Boston, I had cold chills all over. You see, on the way to this luncheon that I really didn't want to go to by myself, I was just flipping through the radio channels when I caught part of an interview where someone mentioned the swan boats in Boston. And as I heard that little snippet of information, I remembered thinking, I knew about the swan boats, but I didn't know they were in Boston. The very same thought that the woman telling the story had just shared. So I knew that learning about the swan rides and that they were in Boston was important for reasons I didn't know, but this other woman knew. I knew this was spirit or the universe. It was their way of connecting. I was supposed to hear this story on the radio. I was supposed to sit where I sat at the luncheon. The wait staff was supposed to misplace our orders. And we were also supposed to get that complimentary lobster bisque as the kitchen staff rushed to take care of our forgotten orders. But everything was falling into place. And I couldn't help but smile. I knew I was back into those realms that I know so well. That universe of energy, of spirit, of learning to function beyond the world of physicality. As I look back at my life and I see how I used to define everything, it was very materialistic. If I couldn't measure something with my senses, it didn't exist. At least it didn't exist in my world. We could use instruments like telescopes to see the cosmos or microscopes to see things at a cellular level. We could use speakers and microphones to amplify sound. But this equipment only increased our ability to perceive more. They were all still based on our senses. But now I know different. I've experienced it and I validated it. As a psychologist, I would have never guessed that I would be making these statements. But now I know there is so much more to this world than what our physical senses measure. I've learned to step outside of this world of physicality, and I've learned to take a deep dive into the non-physical realms of energy, of spirit. This is where truth lies, where wisdom grows like seedlings in fertile soil. This is so much closer to our true nature than what I had ever thought possible until my spontaneous opening to spirit in 2013. I know so much more than I did before, and my team of angels and guides continue to provide me with insights. They've encouraged me to seek answers from within. But to go within required me to learn to expand my awareness. In other words, I had to learn to go outside of myself to see the wisdom that lies within. Let me explain by using a concept that the messengers labeled as your POE, point of existence. Your point of existence is where your awareness is. Quite often, your POE is constricted and it rests rather comfortably inside your body. It finds a cozy place, whether it's in your gut, in your brain, or some other safe place in your body, and it just stays there. And while you go through your day-to-day life, it's tucked deep inside, just resting. It doesn't want to be disturbed. It reminds me of those cold winter mornings as a child when I would be tucked into those warm blankets. My mom would call us, all my sisters, to get up, and the last thing I wanted to do was to throw back those covers and get out of bed. So your POE, your point of existence, stays snuggled inside until it's encouraged to leave. This is why so many of us relate to ourselves as our bodies. We talk about my toothache, my pain, my cancer. We think that we are our bodies. Picture this tiny dot representing your POE, resting comfortably in its constricted form deep inside you. Let me ask, what happens if you drop a hammer on your toe? Your awareness jumps out of its resting place and goes where? Of course, to that throbbing toe. So the question becomes, how do we reposition our POE other than using the hammer method? But not only just reposition it, how do we change it from a tiny dot to an expansive three-dimensional globe something that extends beyond our physical bodies? The answer, allowing. By allowing and letting go. I use the word allow because the POE has a natural tendency to expand, but we hold it back. We hold tight to this beautiful spark of divinity, but it didn't start out that way, not at all. When we are born into our three-dimensional lives, we are much closer to our true nature, which is spirit, the non-physical world of energy. We're helpless and we wouldn't survive on our own. But as a psychologist and as a mother, I know the developmental milestones. We learn to roll over, to sit up, to stand, to walk. We develop language. We become independent. I recall as a parent how thankful I was when my children could begin to talk. I didn't have to second guess what their tears meant. They could tell me what hurt. And it was such a relief for me, as it is for all parents. But something happens with the development of language. Our awareness shifts and we start to operate from that organ of intelligence, the brain. Much of our energy rushes to the brain as we learn to explore our environment. And before you know it, we are these beautiful, yet very analytical creatures. We no longer feel and sense our way through problems. We think our way through these problems. We plan, we execute actions, we learn. That's well and good, but we start to leave our instinctual behaviors behind us. Those behaviors that told us how to survive before we could talk. Look at the animals. In winter, bears don't use their electronic calendars to tell them when to hibernate. They just do it. Their body automatically, instinctually knows what needs to be done to survive. We as humans begin to lose our instinctual nature. Enter the heart. The brain is the body's organ of intelligence, but the most intelligent organ in the body is the heart. That is where our instinctual knowledge resides. That's where, according to the messengers, we can connect with our true nature, our non-physical spirit, our soul. The heart is a portal, allowing us to travel beyond our constricted world of materialism and to expand into a field of energy. Through the heart, we can release our POE into the energy field surrounding our bodies. And once we get used to these, once we accommodate to these subtle frequencies, we realize we're home. We recognize the familiar vibrations from our source. We can breathe in a big sigh of relief as we've stepped outside of time, outside the dense 3D world of physicality. And this is where it all begins, all the fun. Once we become accustomed to these vibrations, we begin to sense things much differently than before. You see, our 5 physical senses expand well beyond anything we've experienced when we were restricted to these vehicles that we call our bodies. By using the heart, we access the emotional guidance system. That's something the messengers told me about, and I actually cover it in chapter 2, Good Vibrations, in my first book, The Reluctant Messenger. But through the emotional guidance system, we learn to expand even wider. And when you enter this expansive state of consciousness, of awareness, you function at a different vibrational level. You enter that zone where you can tap into the mysteries of the universe. I started my first book with the quote from Nikola Tesla. If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And once you've made that connection, you're on the way. Living through the field of energy, things begin to change. This non-physical realm is a thought responsive environment. Manifestation occurs as our thoughts become things. So let me return to the beginning. The woman at the meeting who asked the question about speaking through her heart. Meeting Connie and Lisa. Learning about the connection Boston had to the swan boats on the radio, and hearing that repeated by the woman at the meeting. Learning about that woman's connection to her mother who had passed. We are all connected. Just look around. We each have stories to tell, and the more we tell our stories, the closer we become. When we step outside the realms of physicality, we allow for a more natural flow into the rhythms of life. We allow the universe, which is another word for our angels, our guides, our spirit, our soul, but we allow them to operate through us. We allow for this wonder to happen. The stranger seated next to you, the overheard conversations on the radio or TV. If the wait staff loses your order, just say thank you. That is the universe's way of setting the stage for things to happen. And then it's up to us to decide how to respond. Do we yell at the staff for losing our orders? Or do we give silent thanks for yet again another opportunity to learn that we live in this magical realm where anything and everything are possible? How will you respond? It's your choice. Choose wisely. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I would love to have you like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, remember, be kind. That's my mantra for this year. Kindness matters.